Attachment theory recognizes that our early attachment experiences during our formative years with our primary caregivers and other attachment figures such as siblings, extended family, peers, or teachers can shape how we relate and attach to others, as well as how we relate to ourselves. Now, if these attachment figures misattune to our needs, ignore us, neglect us, maltreat us, there's a strong possibility we'll go on and develop an insecure attachment style, such as anxious, avoidant, or disorganized. And I think this is more likely to happen if you are neurodivergent because we're growing up under structurally ableist societies. They oppress us through the imposition of neurotypical perceptions about what is normal and then expect us to subscribe to it and punish us when we fail to do so, which is inevitable because we're wired differently. Our brains don't function the way neurotypicals expect them to function. We don't think or behave in the ways that they think is normative. And so as a result, we're often punished, marginalized, and excluded. Now, if you develop an insecure attachment style, you will develop an attachment narrative. And what I mean by that is a story about how you exist in the world and in relation to yourselves and to others. For example, I grew up with an anxious attachment style. My perception was there was something inherently wrong with me. People were always going to abandon me, and I was always going to be alone. And I developed that as a result of really negative early attachment experiences where it felt like that narrative was reinforced by those experiences. It seems like people from an early age would constantly reject and abandon me, and I'd be left to fend for myself. I would go into the world with this narrative, and in a way I would enact it. I would project it in how I conducted myself in relation to others. I would have low self-esteem. I'd feel insecure. I wouldn't comport myself in a way that projected self-confidence, and I also would pick people that would reinforce that because the bar was set really low in my imagination. Because everybody was going to abandon and reject me in my perception, I felt like I had to be a lot more flexible about who I was willing to let into my life. But because the bar was set so low, the people that came through were people who were going to ignore me, misattune to me, and maltreat me. And in turn, they would reinforce this attachment narrative that I formed. So the cycle would repeat. I would believe myself unworthy of love and that people would abandon me. And I'd find people unwittingly that would reinforce that perception. And I know many neurodivergents, struggle with this because they have developed an insecure attachment style, and they've developed this narrative as a coping mechanism when dealing with structural ableism. When they're trying to find a way to navigate the world, they form these mental shortcuts, this attachment narrative that makes a grand sweeping statement about their lives and their relationship with others, and then they continue to reinforce it through their own actions and the people they form attachments with. The key to breaking free from this attachment narrative and finding healthy, secure attachment is to recognize it, first and foremost. Of course, insight alone is not going to transform your life. It has to be followed with action. So if you recognize that you have a faulty attachment narrative and that you're reenacting your attachment patterns, like the way I've described in this video, the next step is to then call it. I'm not going to keep repeating this. I'm going to set the bar higher. I'm not going to go into the world perceiving myself to be unworthy and that people are going to abandon me. I'm going to go into the world faking it till I make it, believing that I'm worthy of love and that I will get the love that I deserve and the attunement I need. Have you struggled with a maladjusted attachment narrative that's impacted your ability to attach to others and often been reinforced by the people who show up in your life? How have you shifted away from that narrative more towards secure attachment? What have your attachment experiences been like as a neurodivergent, someone who is autistic or ADHD? I would love to hear from you.